Doogie, there was a report earlier this week from our guy, Evan Massey, who people always make fun of Evan Massey. He's got a blue check mark on Twitter. His work has been featured on Yahoo, ESPN, Bleacher Report, Forbes, and any number of big publications. And he also floated the notion like 2 months ago that the Niners and the Vikings were talking about a Kirk Cousins trade, and we think he was right. So people dog Evan Massey here, but Evan Massey tweeted randomly a couple days ago that the Wolves could be headed for major changes in the offseason with both Cat and D'Lo potentially being dealt. What is your current feeling about where things stand with the Wolves and how much they could shake things up this offseason?
I'll say this. I don't know, Evan. Yes, he was spot on Kirk Cousins and the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan's, interest, love fest, with and for Kirk, that the 49ers would have loved to have Kirk a few years ago. They'd love to have Kirk today. That being said, I dismiss that tweet. I just do, Phil. I mean, DAngelo and Cat have played together for a total of 4 games this year. Gerson Rosas is not putting those guys on the trade block this summer after we don't have any sort of sustained stretch to fully evaluate how those two can work together. And don't get me wrong, both players have warts, more so Russell, and I'm not convinced that you're going real far if D'Angelo Russell is your 1B or your number 2 at $27 or $28 million, eating up that much cap space, but that's a different conversation. I don't foresee Gerson Rosas putting either guy on the trade block this summer. The only way it gets to that point with Cat is if he goes to management or his representation goes to management and says, it's time for a change. I've been here now, 6-7 years. I need to get the heck out of here. I need to go win somewhere else. I've only been an all-star one time. That's ridiculous. I've only been all-NBA one time. That's ridiculous. Get me the heck out of here. And that may eventually happen. I'm not dismissing that idea, but that hasn't happened yet, and I don't think it happens as soon as this summer. So if you're asking me whether I trust what Evan Massey put on social media the other day, I do not. I really don't.
All right, boys, let's delve into a little bit of this with the Wolves.
Reckless speculation.
And I want your opinion, Dukes, here. So this Wolves team is changing. And Ant last night against the Knicks in the fourth quarter was fabulous. When he's on, he's on. He clearly leads. Like, guys love him. I think
player. He's a smart player, too.
And people gravitate towards him. Question being this: how important is it going to be that the Wolves are right about this, and how is this going to shake out internally? Because I can flat out tell you, when training camp 2021-22 starts, this is going to be Ant's team, and Cat's going to be on it, and he might be the best player, but it's not going to be his team. How's the stew going to work here? Because there is definitely, when a 19-year-old kid takes control on and off the court like he does, that to me is a great thing. But how's this going to work out as far as the dynamics go of D'Lo, of Cat, of Ant? Not that they might not have respect there, but this whole notion that it was going to be Cat and D'Lo's team, this is really going to be Ant's team as far as perception goes, in my opinion.
Well, I agree with you on that perception. I wish I had that answer, Judd. Clearly, Cat has been deferring to Ant. That is encouraging. Yep. How will D'Lo react? Now, he is starting to play some 5-on-5, absorbing some contact, but he won't be back like in the next 3 or 4 days. We're still looking at a week, maybe 2 weeks, but he will return this regular season. But remember, they gave us that timeline of 4 to 6 weeks in mid-February. That was uber aggressive. He's not coming back. Well, it's already done. He's not back in 6 weeks. So it's going to be more like 7 to 8 to maybe 9 weeks. But he'll be back. I'll be curious to see how it plays out. D'Angelo loves to dominate the ball. Now, Chris Finch, I talked to Chris one-on-one a few weeks ago. He swears to me that there's a lot more playmaking in D'Angelo's game. We haven't seen that playmaking. We know that he can pass the ball, that he's made some really good passes, but that he doesn't do it enough, doesn't really create for others as much as he should. Chris Finch feels like that's there. So it's on Finch to unearth that part of D'Angelo's game, but then it's on D'Angelo to embrace what Chris is coaching him to do. So I'll be fascinated to see how that plays out. But I'm with you. This is Anthony Edwards' team. The numbers in March, 24 points a game. just absurd. 19 years old. Let me remind everybody, he doesn't turn 20 until early August 5th. 19, like Jaden McDaniels will turn, who's fantastic. And, just for comparison's sake, because Jaden has been absurd, right? But Jaden turns 21 in early to mid-September. So, like, Jaden is 11 months older than Anthony Edwards. LaMelo Ball, by the way, same age as Anthony Edwards for another comparison. But, like, let's see how this thing, plays out. Like, no summer league, right? No extended preseason, no extended training camp. It's just been a really weird year in so many different ways. And Anthony Edwards has still starred in so many ways. Now, Phil, I will take exception with you suggesting he's a smart player. I think there's some smarts there. I think that maturation will take place as he turns 20, 21, and 22. I just think with his shot selection and some of the effort he's given on defense, now maybe it's because he's exerting so much energy on offense, but I just think some of the defensive decisions, although he made a really great play late last night, pounding the ball off RJ Barrett's knee to give the Wolves possession with like 15 seconds to go. But I think some of the defensive decisions he's made or lack of effort and shot selection, I still think the smarts need to come, but they can come. And I'll continue to say that there are still concerns that I have about Anthony Edwards reaching his full potential here. Like, I think if he hits a ceiling, like, we're talking about a perennial all-star. And I just wonder in this environment if he can really maximize his potential. But even if he only gets to 75% of his potential, he is going to be really, really good. Like, I remember talking pre-draft. Didn't we talk about, maybe a range of Bradley Beal at the ceiling and like Dion Waiters at the floor? And we all said the right answer is probably somewhere in between. Like, we know he's going to be better than Dion Waiters, but he may not be Bradley Beal. I'll just say that I've seen enough that he could be Bradley Beal.
Yeah, I agree.
Really could. Now, I don't know if he'll ever shoot the ball quite like Bradley Beal, but I think he has a chance to be as good perception-wise. Like, if you took a poll of league executives, they would probably tell you Bradley Beal is somewhere in that 10 to 18 to 20 range for best overall player in the league, maybe a little bit higher, maybe 7 to 15 to 17. I think Anthony Edwards, if he hits a ceiling, can be in that range too.
Yep, and I would say you check me on the smart comment, and I'll agree. I'm going to walk it back and say, and I'll give you my logic. I think he's a thoughtful, curious player that will eventually lead to him being a heady, smart player. I agree. His shot selection can be weird. It's like all too often he'll take 9 threes in a game when he doesn't need to, when he can get to the rim. And I will say the reason I use the word smart player, maybe a little bit prematurely, is that I love the way that he breaks things down in his post-game assessments. Like last night, there was a play late where they were running sort of pick and roll motion at the top of the key in like the last couple minutes of that game. And it looked initially like the Knicks were trapping Ant. And ordinarily, they're trapping me, now I got to either pick up my dribble or pass the ball. And he recalled a conversation sort of halfway through the game with one of his teammates. I can't remember if it was Rubio or somebody else, in which they agreed, no, these are sort of fake traps where they show trap and then they back off. And so if you just give it a second, they'll back off the trap, and now you can just dribble by the defender. Like, that's, to me, like, that's a 19-year-old dissecting what a defense is doing in a key spot and not just, oh my God, they're trapping, I'm going to pick up my dribble. So I love that he's thoughtful and curious about some of those actions and how to work off Cat and communicate. And it feels like he's setting up for a big career at a young age here. I
think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, we can move on to the next talking point. But yeah, Phil, everything you just described, I'm with you. That's cool. Incredibly fair.
How about some rapid fire scoops to send it off here? Any opening day fodder for the Twins?
No, not in particular. I'm glad that Louis Arise is getting the start in left field. I'm bummed that with no DH, although next year, if there isn't a lockout, right, the CBA expires in early December. So that's something we'll talk about later on this year. But I think the universal DH is coming. So it's weird that we had it last year. Now we have the pitchers hitting again. So Nelson Cruz, because they're playing in a National League ballpark today, Nelson Cruz is not in the lineup. And presumably he won't be in the lineup Saturday or Sunday. He'll make his season debut when they play Detroit. I think they play Detroit as soon as Monday, right? So that's weird. But no, I mean, they haven't made any sort of progress on a Barrios extension to my knowledge or a Buxton extension. So no, nothing that jumps out to me. I saw Garver will start at catcher. I'm excited, right? Like, I'm glad that we'll play 162 games. I'm glad that stadiums will be able to welcome back some fans. But no, there's nothing that's uber percolating in my mind or from what I've been told on the Twins. I can tell you, and I don't have his last name, but his name is Gamali. He's from the University of South Dakota. I think he went to Tartan High School. I think his brother is on the Wolves staff. Anyway, there's some buzz about St. Thomas, Johnny Tower and St. Thomas, as they ascend from D3 to D1, that Johnny Tower is looking to hire Gamali. I thought Gamali might be in the mix to join Ben Johnson's staff at Minnesota. And I apologize for not having his last name right here in front of me. It begins with an A. Gameli, Gamali. And he's an assistant coach currently at South Dakota. But just keep an eye on his name to come home, since he's from here in the Twin Cities, for him to come home and possibly join Johnny Tower's staff at St. Thomas. The other interesting thing is Roy Williams announces his retirement. I thought it was an April Fool's joke, but Roy Williams is done at North Carolina. They have Kerwin Walton Jr. from Hopkins High School on their roster. There's not been any talk about him coming home to Minnesota, but let's see who North Carolina hires as its next head coach. But the last couple of days, I'm told that Kerwin has actually been trying to work on some transfers to maybe join him in Chapel Hill. So there hasn't been talk yet of Kerwin Walton Jr. thinking about coming home to play for the Gophers. But I'll be curious to see who replaces the legend, Roy Williams. Also on Dawson Garcia, Prior Lake High School. McDonald's All-American last year. So he just finished his first year at Marquette. He was one of the better players in the Big East. Like, Dawson will play in the NBA. I don't know if he's quite ready for the NBA now, although he may test the waters. I wouldn't be shocked if he tests the waters. But Shaka Smart got the Marquette job. But Shaka doesn't develop big men. Look at Jericho Sims, Minneapolis native, down at Texas. That's another interesting name to keep an eye on if he eventually enters the transfer portal. Would he come home? His dad played for the Gophers, Dr. Sims, Charles Sims. So could Jericho play a fifth year of college basketball, not go pro, and maybe end up back here? But on Garcia, Shaka Smart, like, that offense doesn't suit big. So Texas actually offered Dawson Garcia before anyone else. They offered him when Shaka was the coach at Texas. They offered Garcia years ago. So Shaka knows Dawson incredibly well. But if you're Dawson's family, do you want Dawson playing in Shaka's offense? That's another interesting one to keep an eye on, because if he enters the portal, like, the Gophers better be all over Dawson Garcia. He is big time.
Reckless speculation.
Thank you, Doogie. Great
You
stuff.
got it, boys.
Always.
Bye, Dukes.
Absolutely.
So that's
Take it easy.
Darren Doogie Wolfson from 5 Eyewitness News and the Scoop podcast, which you can find weekly. Just inside interviews. And we've even expanded, as of a couple weeks ago, little bonus scoop on Tuesdays on the Mackey and Judd podcast feed. And you can always find almost everything we do on our YouTube channel, too. We have 2 YouTube channels, SKOR North MN and Purple Daily Podcast. And I just want, before we get into main takeaways from the scoop and before we get into old tweets exposed, March 2021 was the biggest month in SKOR North history. And obviously we're sort of just a 3-man band here with Doogie, and we got Royce, and we've got some other contributors in the mix, and we added the 10,000 Swings Minnesota Golf Show, which you can find full episodes on skornorth.com, Apple, Spotify. But the early part of last year, because of the pandemic and a lot of our friends and coworkers were let go just with revenue losses, it's been a fun climb back for us, at least the 3 of us, and we just want to thank our audience, everyone who listens to Mackey and Judd or Purple Daily and supports our sponsors. March was the biggest month in SKOR North history, so yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So
pick one thing from the scoop, and what was the most interesting thing or compelling thing there from the scoop that stood out to you? I'm always the Gopher basketball stuff. I'm just sort of fixated on because I love that they've created this community now of current and former Gophers figures. So that's kind of cool. But what else stood out to you?
And I think the thing with the Gophers right now is, with this transfer portal stuff, there's so many unknowns. And is this guy going to? I mean, it is college free agency now. I think the thing that stood out to me is the Wolves stuff. And I find this team to be, they're still a train wreck. I get that. But I find this whole story with, Ant now and D'Lo coming back and Cat being there and Cat still being damn good, but, Cat not being an alpha personality, I think this whole thing is going to be really intriguing to watch because this is going to be Ant's team. I mean, I can't tell you enough. When a 19-year-old kid basically, and I mean this as a compliment, when he like dictates things as far as guys loving him and as far as like he's the face and voice of this team more and more. Like last night post game, Beasley's about to do his Zoom call, and like Ant comes in and says, "We're doing this together," and Bees is like, "Yeah, we're doing this together," and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's great." He's 19.
Dude, did you see, too, sometimes you can tell, like, the body language on the Wolves, even when they were winning with Butler, like, you can kind of tell a lot about the direction of a team by body language. And sometimes it's a little hard when you're watching on TV or you're watching from the stands. You can glean things that might not be correct, but the Wolves have had some pretty bad and I would say dismissive body language over the years, and Karl-Anthony Towns is not a big like body language chemistry.
He hangs
guy.
his head a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of defeatist in what you see from him.
Yep.
After a whistle.
Yep. He's not the brightest like beacon for bringing a team together, right? And I mean, you know, that wasn't like Kobe Bryant always was either, but like there was a certain beacon to his personality. It's the best word I can think of. But last night, the clinching play of that game, when I think they were running pick and roll action, and Ant Edwards had already driven to the hoop a couple times. He had a floater to tie the game at one point. And so Ant drives into the lane, and instead of what I thought he was going to do was sort of barrel into traffic and try to put a shot up and maybe get fouled, which, you know, whatever. Like, at least he's taking the game in his hands. He thought next level. He saw the defender come in from the wing, and he turns to his left and fires a pass to Beasley, who bangs the three to give the Wolves a lead they never gave back.
Yes.
And after the play was over, Beasley's reaction wasn't just, "Oh, I hit a big shot." It was, "Ant, dude, that was an amazing play." Like, you saw the defender come in, you kicked it out. Like, it was a chess match play by a 19-year-old, and Beasley recognized it and was thumping his chest. And then after the game, David Vanterpool celebrated his 39th birthday. And you had Beasley and Ant and a couple other guys like, you know, messing up his hair and bringing him in. It feels like Ant has brought this light to this team that hasn't felt like it existed, even when they went to the playoffs a couple years ago, because Tom Thibodeau and Jimmy Butler were such browbeaters.
And Ant's thing too is that I really think he enjoys this still. Like, this is fun. He's 19 and he's having fun. Where like with Cat, I mean, you watch the majority of veteran Wolves players, and this is a job. Like, this is a tough job, and the team stinks, and so it's not fun. And Beasley, and this to me is the most important thing. When things aren't going well and people are down, I think Beasley somehow takes on what's going on. And so, like, I've seen him look really down, and there are times where he just looks like he's defeated.
Are you saying that,
like,
Beasley can maybe get a little easily frustrated and take it out on people sometimes?
Beasley sort of blows with the wind that the Wolves are blowing, but when Ant is going well, he gets excited and engaged, and it's fun to watch. And so if D'Lo has that ball last night when Ant did, he takes the shot. Like, there's no question about it. He takes that shot. And so this is why I'm so curious to see what the trickle down now is of, and I don't think Cat's going to have a problem, Phil, deferring. I really don't. I think in his personality, he would almost prefer to defer and still be good, but I don't think he needs that. D'Lo, I'm not so sure about. And that's the one, but I mean, I think the ship has sailed. And I think this is Ant's team, and it's going to be. So I don't think that there's a like struggle here. I think there's going to have to be a decision about what D'Lo does and his role. And as Jim Pete said last night too, and this applied in what Jim was talking about to Beasley, and it's going to apply to D'Lo as well. You know, when they were either suspended or got hurt, Ant wasn't this player yet. Like, he was important, and he was not, but I mean, he has become much more important, and much more in part because those two guys were out, a focal point now. And so you're going to step back into a situation that has evolved very quickly and is very different. And I suggest that it would be probably best to allow Ant to be Ant. If you fight it, I think it's going to be a problem. And fan base wise, I really think that what Ant brings to the floor is what this team needs. It is such a breath of fresh air to watch him.
Yeah. I just tabulated on Basketball Reference. So in the last 16 games, so basically the last month and a week for Ant, he's averaging 24 points a game, 6 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 2 steals, shooting percentage 41, so not amazing, but way better than it was early in the season. The one biggest, easiest tweak he can make to his game, offensively, he's not a great shooter, and he was very self-aware about this. He talked openly about this yesterday, saying, "I know my shot's my shot will come. I will fix it. I will work on it." Like, he's very confident. The shot is not there. He gets hot sometimes. Like, he had that one game where he made like 6 or 7 threes against Portland and was just lights out. So in those 16 games in which he's averaging 24 points, he has taken at least 7 3-pointers in 15 of the 16 games. He's taken double-digit 3-pointers in 5 of the 16 games. You got to cut that. Like, I want to see him only shoot threes if it's a spot up off a pass or off a pick and roll wide open, and I want to see him cap it at 5 a game, just as an experiment the rest of the year. You get 5 threes a game, make them wide open, efficient looks, either off a pick and roll or spot up, and then with the rest of those shots, find creative ways to either get to the free throw line, get to the rim, or draw defenders and kick. You're not ready to shoot 10 threes a game, so stop doing it.
Right.
So,
but he's but he's never boring, and that's what I like.
Yep.
He's maddening at times, brilliant at times, but this franchise needs guys that are like this because they're not boring.
Yep. You know what else isn't boring? Riding season, boys. Dennis Kirk supporting us here at SKOR North and supporting us on the Mackey and Judd podcast. So if you like to ride, it's been a long winter. But hey, opening day is here. Spring signs are in the air. Motorcycle season is back. And so if you ride, whether it's a Harley, Metro Cruiser, sport bike, whatever you ride, you'll find what you need at DennisKirk.com. 160,000 parts and accessories in stock, clothing and helmets as well. If you order by 8 p.m., they'll ship the same day. Plus, shipping is free on orders over $89. Dennis Kirk is the best in the business. You can find them again at DennisKirk.com. Everything you need for your ride at DennisKirk.com. All right, this is the time where Declan goes back into the Internet archives. There are, I want to say, 12 years of tweets going back. Judd and I have been tweeting for a long time. Declan's been tweeting for a long time.
Yeah, 2009 for us.
Tweets exposed here. Declan, what do you got for us?
Yeah, we're a little bit all over the place in this edition. There's some hockey one. There's a hockey one I want to bring from Judd. There's actually a question I answered from Judd like 2 or 3 years ago that I want to bring to the fold as well.
Okay.
But since it is opening day, happy opening day, and since we had the biggest Kyle Garlick fan in the middle here, Phil Mackey, who made his point that, Kyle Garlick made the team over Brent Rooker, and maybe it's because of his defense, but at the same time, what
did I tweet?
On September 7th, 2020, very curious to see more Brent Rooker. He was the best hitter in the SEC a few years ago, mashed Friday night pitching too, which is usually the ace. That was a great piece of hitting in that last AB because he had a cup of coffee last year.
I stand by all those things. I still am very curious to see more Brent Rooker just once the Kyle Garlick era has run its course.
That's right, when he's out right off the roster here in 2 months, or 2 months from an outright.
By the way, look at that, 84 likes. Look at the engagement on that. 84 likes on that thing.
That's some good engagement right there, dude.
All of them were Declan, by the way. Declan had 84 burner accounts.
Yeah. Doesn't get 84 likes. Kyle Garlick takes. I'll just.
So you're saying I'm sort of a hypocrite basically for that tweet.
Correct.
But I've gone back on that. All right.
That is exactly what I'm
bandwagon.
All right.
It's the Garlic bandwagon. It's the Rooker bandwagon.
I've always said spring training numbers are very important, so I just need to see more.
All right, so this was a 1500 ESPN Judd tweet, but I replied to it. So first off, let me go to the question first. With Wiggins having another frustrating game, give me your top 5 MN athletes who have had actual potential who drove you crazy. Okay. Here is my list.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
This is from 2018.
It's great.
Pierre-Marc Bouchard, which is, he did drive me nuts.
Yeah.
Francisco Liriano drove me nuts.
Yep.
Scott Baker absolutely drove me nuts.
Really? Okay.
Charlie Coyle which, I mean, my God. And we'll get to a Coyle tweet, foreshadowing with Judd, and then Sidney Rice. I just thought this was a fascinating little discussion of like 5 guys who drove you crazy. This was, 3 years ago now.
This is less of like you being exposed. It's more of like a great sort of look back. So I'm curious, we talk a lot on this show about, the gap between reality and expectations is where angst lies. And I would apply that to your putting Scott Baker on this list. What about Scott Baker what did you expect from Scott Baker where you weren't getting it and it's driving you nuts? Did you see like Max Scherzer in there somewhere and he's not quite getting there and so you're
I told you
angsty?
what, at that bar crawl we did a year or two ago, and we did a live tapping. Like I was in tears when he almost blew that no hitter. When he blew that no hitter, not almost, he blew the no hitter to Mike Sweeney and the Royals.
He had a perfect game, didn't he?
Perfect game
through 8 innings.
I was watching at the beer garden at 14 years old with my dad, glued to the TV, watching Scott Baker. Yeah, perfect through 8. I think he walked. I forget who he walked, and I believe Mike Sweeney, of course, the ultimate Twins killer, blooped a little single in the 9th.
Scott Baker was actually pretty damn good.
He was.
I always thought he got more from his talent than most did.
For sure. And
now, Frankie, you're 1,000% right. Coyle, Sidney Rice's problem was, aside from the Favre year in 2009, the guy was always hurt.
Mm-hmm.
He was always injured. It drove you crazy.
And Charlie Coyle, I mean, that just...
Oh, yeah. No, Coyle's he's the poster child. And shockingly, he now is doing the same thing in Boston.
Yeah.
I know you guys are shocked. He's underachieving with the Bruins.
What a great segue. What a great segue. February 6, 2013, Mike Yo's decision to remove Heatley from the first line and replace him with Coyle was the smart move. My column.
He drops the my column.
I dropped the my column. Well, look, it's 2013. This isn't the days of my column. My column.
Oh, man.
You know what? I stand by this because poor Danny Heatley was a broken down old man when they made the, I believe it was the Marty Havlet 4th of July trade in 2012.
Judd, can we get you going forward, even on tweets that don't involve a link to a column? Can you just end every tweet with my column?
Do you remember this was this at the time was the thing. In 2013, you put my story, my column, me.
Yep, and sometimes you would even do all caps for my column, so people knew
it was
my column.
Oh, if it carried a punch, you did all caps.
I would say even some people still do that, even locally here.
What?
My column.
Do they really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Here's what I did. Here's my ranking. Here's what I thought about
my column, but just my column, period, and then a link.
I feel like, too, I had like a resurgence a couple years ago as well. Like people, you always used to do the same joke, like my column with the colon.
Oh, because it became a joke. But in 2013, that was serious bleep.
Mm-hmm. I gotta say, I think Judd takes the cake here this week. I mean, that's
Judd wins.
I think the my column thing really put me over the edge.
By the way, combing through tweets, I might have like a good month's worth of Charlie Coyle tweets from Judd. So it might be a next month of Charlie Coyle takes for you.
Oh, and Judd loved the idea of Charlie Coyle at his upside.
Yeah, they did. They did go up and down. I would say
up and down.
The majority of them you were accurate, but there are some where you took that apple and you bit it and ran with it.
Oh, well, there were times when circa 2013 and 14, there were times when the Wild got on streaks and I bought in.
Oh, totally.
I did a whole column one time. This is way back when. It might have been Parisi Suter year 1 or 2, where I wrote a column basically saying this team is now likable and you can trust them. They're really good. And they went right in the crapper.
The kiss of death.
They went right. It wasn't my fault. It's their fault.
Amazing.
Very upset by that.
All right, boys. That was we all need to smoke after that reckless speculation Thursday.
There's a lot of reckless speculation.
Great stuff. All right, tomorrow we are doing our first ever. So we are expanding the Mackey and Judd movie rewind universe. It all started about a year ago, a little over a year ago, with Action Movie Rewind, and then we evolved into Rom-Com Rewind. And tomorrow, for the first time, Sports Movie Rewind. Judd's first ever viewing of The Mighty Ducks.
I watched it last night. I have watched it.
Withhold your takes until tomorrow.
Wait. Hold on a second. 2.5 solid pages of notes.
Wow.
2.5 pages of notes.
Amazing.
So
District 5, baby.
We'll do the deep dive.
Joshua Jackson.
That's right.
Pacey.
Deep dive tomorrow.
Love Pacey.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for supporting Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Good talk.